For these game previews this season, I've been trying to ask one big question. And when it comes to New York against DC, is there any other question than, well, I guess not if fireworks will come, but when will those fireworks come? And obviously, I don't need to tell you, if you know anything about these two and the big clashes that they have, you know that the fireworks usually come at the end. But I think for both of them, they are beginning to look a little bit ahead. Of course, hosting that East Division final is still on the line, but the Empire have already locked up a spot in the playoffs, and for DC, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion to get at least the 2 seed, but they still mathematically can get the 1 seed as well. But other than needing to make the trip up to New York again, for DC and New York both, it's about how you take these squads and rev it up for the postseason, as we're only a few weeks away now. And if we're really going to do this preview right, you know we have to start with the man that was the man in the 18-17 overtime win down in DC earlier this season. Jeff Babbitt had a colossal 7 goals and 3 blocks in the nation's capital, daring DC defenders to beat him to the front cone. In recent weeks, the goal scoring has been a bit more balanced, which is a good thing for New York if Babbitt isn't 100%. An unintentional poke in the eye last week against the Glory had Jeff leaving the field with an eye patch, and the week break came at a good time. Maybe like co-head coach of the Empire, Charlie Hoppes, I too have been playing a little too much Zelda lately, but the idea of a one-eyed monster looking like Jeff Babbitt could be even more intimidating than Jeff with 2 eyes. Funny enough, the images from that game say that Babbitt was the man, but he didn't have the highest plus-minus on the team. That honor went to Ryan Asgar with 6 assists and 2 goals and a block, a +9. He also finished second on the Empire with 450 yards. And it's totally fair before any game to say maybe Ryan Asgar is going to be his game, he's going to take over and do Ryan Asgar 2022 MVP style things. But if I'm making predictions, something I haven't really done too much this year like I did last with those over-unders, with Elliot Chartok likely unavailable for this one, I'd put my money on a marquee Jack Williams performance, as he'll probably be in the handler space a bit more often this week. The reigning championship weekend MVP is having a typical numerical Jack Williams season. He's got 13 goals, 21 assists, and 2 blocks for a +24, putting him right around his 4-year Empire averages for all of those categories. And this season, his numbers indicate that he's kind of been whoever the Empire need him to be on a given day. Against DC the first time, he had just 2 assists, but led New York with 524 total yards, behind only Johnny Malk's 642 on the night. Against Philly in the overtime game, he had 7 assists and a block. Against Boston last game, he had 4 goals, 4 assists, and a block for a +7. If you look at the counting numbers, it's hard to fully understand the impact that Jack has on the Empire. But with the playoffs nearing, I think it's time to focus up again on what makes Jack so valuable. Moving over to DC, everything I just said about Jack Williams will turn that dial up to 11 in the case of Rowan McDonald. He is a -1 ± this season and leads the team with 19 turnovers, 5 more than second place Malks. He's also tied for second on the team with 2 drops this year. As much as we've talked about DC having so many lineup combinations, and they still do, obviously, Joe Merrill's barely played a minute on O, and that is one of those wild card moves that Daryl Stanley could do at any time. But the only 3 players, being Rowan, Garrett Braun, and Thomas Edmonds, only those 3 have really split time. And in the case of Edmonds, it feels a bit more like a move to the D-line with Jacques Nissen's return from Brown. But in the case of Rowan, the numbers don't tell the story at all. You watch the games, you watch how the disc moves, you watch things flow, and when things are really looking good for DC with the disc, Rowan is usually out there. I don't want to just call it confidence, but he instills something into his teammates on the field that brings the best out of them, even if he's not racking up the numbers himself. And before I go, of course the coolest thing about New York against DC is that it is such a good rivalry, and it makes good memories and bad memories, and is usually some kind of game that fans remember. And if you want to share some of the memories of the past, get to the game early at 5 p.m. to help celebrate Alumni Night. Join in a tailgate. There's going to be a video presentation from the past and get to know some of the good times and the bad times, all those trials and tribulations against the Toronto Rush, and what it all took to finally get over the hump and become the Empire that you know so well today. So again, that's 5 p.m. for the tailgate leading up to the game Friday night at Joseph F. Facina Field against the DC Breeze on Alumni Night. We'll see you there.